Meeting to order, the Laredo ISD Board of Trustees. Meeting to order, the Laredo ISD Board of Trustees. Laredo ISD Public Facility Corporation Board of Directors, public hearing, Thursday, November 17. It is 5:18 p.m. We're in the Amber Yuri Boardroom, and we will have roll call. Dr. Cecilia May Moreno, present. Mr. Hector Noyola,
Absent.
absent. Ms. Cindy Liendo,
Present.
Mr. Joe Valdez,
Present.
Mr. Ricardo Garza, absent. Mr. Hector Garcia,
Present.
and Mr. Jose R. Perez, absent.
Absent. We have a quorum.
We have a quorum with four?
We don't need
Okay,
it for the hearing, but we'll need it for the special call.
okay. Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Nelson?
Thank you, Dr. Moreno. Good evening, members of the board. Item number C in our public hearing is discussion and presentation on targeted improvement plans for formerly improvement required campuses, including Bruni Elementary School, Leindecker Elementary School, Santa Maria Elementary School, and Figueroa Middle School. We're very proud to report that while we're meeting the Texas Education's expectations for improvement required campuses, we're very proud to report that these are formerly improvement required. So the key is to continue the upward trajectory that these students have shown in their academic performance. So with that, I'll turn it over to our Director of Federal Programs, Mrs. Oralia Hinojosa Cortez, to take us through our presentation in this hearing before we go to our next item. Mrs. Cortez.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Nelson and colleagues. My name is Aurelia Cortez again. I am the District Coordinator of School Improvement also, and I'll be presenting the targeted improvement plans for our formerly improvement required campuses. Texas Education Code requires that we identify the members of the campus leadership team. This includes campus administration, teachers, support staff, a professional service provider that is funded by the district, and myself, the District Coordinator for School Improvement. We are required to engage in the TASTE process, which is the Texas Accountability Intervention System. We analyze data, identify the areas of need, and develop a targeted improvement plan that addresses the indexes or the system safeguards. This plan is presented in a public hearing, and then we obtain approval by the Board of Trustees. And for formerly improvement required campuses, we are not required to submit the plan to TA. However, we maintain it locally. These are the four formerly improvement required campuses. We'll start with Bruni Elementary. Bruni Elementary met standards in all four indexes. Well, before I started, I wanted to say that I was very proud of the four schools because they not only met standard, but they got at least one distinction designation, all four campuses. For Bruni Elementary, and the principals are here. For Bruni Elementary, they got a distinction designation in the area of mathematics. However, there is a need. They missed some system safeguards, meaning that they scored below a 60% in the areas of reading and science.
Mr. Secretary, you like Hillary?
This is part of their targeted improvement plan. One of the areas is that 57% or less of the English language learners met the reading and science standard, STAR standard. The goal is for 70% of those ELL students to meet the reading and science standard. The strategy.
For the record, Mr. Rick Garza is here. and our attorney, Mr. Kaysen. Thank you.
Now, the strategy for, and you'll see the strategy for most of the campuses is to continue to consistently implement differentiated instructional strategies, and also something called the explicit direct instruction model. The second area of need was that only 13% of the students met the advanced level 3, and we want to improve that to 23% this coming year. And again, we need to model or monitor more that the rigor is in the instruction, that it is aligned to the STAR test. They're reviewing lesson plans, monitoring that what is in the lesson plan is actually happening in the classroom, especially during the enrichment blocks that the schools have now.
Can I ask you one question on
Yes, sir.
that? How do you arrive at the numbers at 70% and 27%? Are those achievable goals?
Oh, well, we increased it, but yes, they are achievable, sir.
Okay,
Yes, yes.
that's good.
Yes. The next campus is Line Decker Elementary. Again, they met all 4 indexes, so they met standard. They got a distinction designation in the area of science. And the only system safeguards that they missed were in reading and mathematics for the special ed subgroup. Their area of need is they're focusing on those 3rd and 4th grade students that did not meet the reading or the math test. So they're very closely monitoring those students, making sure they're getting the interventions and monitoring their performance on the CBAs and providing the intervention activities during the day and after school. The goal is for 50% of those that did not meet it last year, that they do meet 1 year's growth and or meet level 2 satisfactory standard. In the next area of need is that only 12% met the advanced level in reading and 19% in mathematics, and the goal is for 20% of the students to meet the advanced level 3 in reading and 27% in mathematics.
Shouldn't we recognize our high performing classes that were formed this year to try to get the students to the level 3?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. And one of the things is that they're closely monitoring those that got level 3, they must get level 3 again. Those that were close, those are the ones we're pushing to make it to the level 3. Yes.
Right, but it should be that we're pushing everybody in that class.
Yes, definitely, yes, in that class and in other classes too.
Right, but
Yes.
definitely.
In those classes
The expectation
especially.
would be that if the instruction is at the level it should be,
Yes,
then everybody in that class will get it.
yes.
True.
And going back to the first strategy, that explicit direct instruction, which is a need in all the campuses, this is mainly for our ELLs and our special ed. This is a new training that is being provided by Region 1 and all of our campuses. I know Cigarroa Middle already got the training on a Saturday. They had about 30 teachers attend, the administrators, the bilingual strategists, myself, the professional service provider also attended, so that when we go and do walkthroughs, we know what to look for, what it is that the teachers should be doing for our ELLs and our special ed. It's mainly very much guided instruction, a lot of repetition, practice, a lot of student engagement. Teacher with the students, they do a lot of what they call engagement norms. They tell the student, because we went through it and we actually participated, and it was very engaging. Students, read with me, gesture with me, pronounce with me. So throughout the lesson, we were very much engaged. They also use whiteboards to do periodic reviews, to check for understanding. So, you lift your board and the teacher gets to see, are they understanding the concept? So this has to do with the first 40 minutes of class. It's very direct, very guided, and to make sure that the students understand and therefore, learn it and transfer that to their permanent memory. That's what the research says. And that's for all the campuses. Other campuses are getting this training also. I know Lamar Middle already got the training too. For Santa Maria Elementary, they met standards in all 4 indexes also. They got a distinction designation in the top 25% student progress. They were ranked number 4 in their comparison group of 40 campuses. They were ranked number 4. They missed the system safeguards in the area of reading and writing. So those are the focus areas. The area of need is that 53% of the English language learners met the state standards in all subjects.
If you put everything together in all the elementaries, where did all 3 of the elementaries similar in what they didn't meet?
Reading, ELLs, and special ed. And that's what we feel,
And that's mainly across the board
yes.
with all our schools.
Our special ed, yes, the area of reading was...
And it goes back to
yes.
what I've been trying to say, it goes back to special ed, which is not the special ed director, but we need to emphasize more on special ed, because the bilingual took that step that we needed to take, or they got closer, but the special ed didn't. And for whatever reason, and I know they're working hard at it, but there's something in that puzzle, like anything else, that's not working right, that we need to go in there and try to massage where it works, because it's not only the schools that we're getting that extra help at,
Right.
but also the schools that are performing pretty well, they're still not being able to perform.
Yes.
So
In fact,
something
Can I
is,
respond to that?
Yes.
I think Mr. Garcia's points are well taken. I just want to really emphasize the irony that if you really look at deep into our special ed situation, we are being challenged to put more kids
regular classes.
in regular classes. And at the same time, members of the community, elected and otherwise, would say special ed kids got to get more focused instruction, more intense help, something different than what regular ed kids are getting, because they're not showing the same growth that their regular ed counterparts are showing. So it's a double-edged sword, but your points are
But
well taken.
do we
The
have-
bottom line, special ed kids got to perform better.
And a quick question, and I don't know if we do it or we don't, but once we put them into a regular classroom, are these kids pulled out for resource classes, where we pulled out once a day or twice a day?
Yes.
Just to, that extra guidance, that extra, huh?
And it depends on what is on the ARD, what the committee decided on their instructional setting.
But it should be, just my thoughts is that if we're going to take it from one program, from the special ed department, and try to mainstream them, that it should be a policy across the board that we're going to give them this service, at least for the first year and a half, and then evaluate them to see if they're able to do that, then just throw them in there without really,
It sounds logical,
Right, but
but
I know
there's
they're-
ARDs
I know
that
they're-
contradict that.
Huh?
There's ARD meetings that contradict that.
but
And
can the
And we're
board?
dinged for not doing it. See what I'm saying? So there's kids. See, it's the thing about special ed kids is every kid has a private meeting.
I understand
And in
that.
those private meetings, there are agreements that are arrived at that we're being measured on how the kid performs, regardless of whether they're in resource, which is what you're talking about. If we go ahead and try and push them in inclusion, because if we don't push enough of them in inclusion, then they're going to stamp our TAPER report that special ed needs to be monitored. Community won't accept that. That's now documenting a problem with special ed. So we don't want to push kids into inclusion and they're not ready. They don't have the support, but there are ARD meetings where they will be pushed into, because maybe they do well in reading, but they can't do well in math. And so they get pushed into one class and there is no resource, there is no what we call support, other than what we do for regular ed kids, which is tutoring. And so every kid has a little bit different road to climb, but your ideas in theory are practical. It's just these ARD meetings are kind of tying our hands, and And special ed is becoming a state and national phenomenon.
Well-
But real quick, I'm sorry, but is it mandated by the state that they follow this? Or is it a local policy where we create that they stay in a resource class for a year? Where's the rules coming down? Is there own rules that we're sticking to?
Every
that?
child is evaluated every year.
Uh-huh.
And at that time, we determine, does the child still need or meets
You know-
criteria? There's federal guidelines.
That's what I'm asking.
Yes, yes.
Okay. You answered my question with that.
I don't
We
think we
have to
by
re-
law can just make local policies
No.
that
No.
circumvent state and
Yes.
federal policy.
That was my question.
For special ed, right.
You
I
have to
don't-
remember that inclusion takes care of the fact that children will not be out in a world that's totally excluded when they graduate. So the only way
God
we're
bless that
going to prepare
concept.
students for the world of work and for after high school is that they have been included in the education of all children throughout the day.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
But that's what I said, a combination where you're doing that, but at the same time protecting them, getting them a little stronger.
You're supposed
before you
to
do that.
provide all the assistance that they need, and if we're
Yes.
not providing the assistance, then that's where we're failing. Not in
there's
our
kids-
placement of the
That's what I think it
student,
is.
but in the lack of, but if we're not providing the assistance that they need, the tutoring, and I've been asking, we should have all special education students receiving tutoring, and I'm not even sure if that happens.
And all ELLs.
That's right.
Every ELL
Both
we
groups.
got
Yes.
should be at school for
Especially-
tutoring.
That's right.
So that's a report we're bringing in December, and if we cannot show evidence that that's happening, it will begin in January.
Let me,
Yes,
let
yes.
I
me
think
join
we're
the
already, I
conversation
think
here.
all of our
Yeah.
kids are doing it. I'll be willing to bet, but
Mr.
we'll
Valdez.
double check.
All right. First of all, we're dealing with something here, this presentation is very interesting, but there are a lot of things that do not make sense here. Now, Mr. Garcia brought up some points, and what happened was, they were put in a crib and they went to sleep, or a cave, because no action is taken. Look at what we got here, and looking at Santa Maria. Now, I'm familiar with that school, and our principal is here. He knows me, and I have grandkids there, and I go there every morning. It says here, we have identified some areas of need. And what is the strategy? Just to look at them. And what is the goal? Oh, they will improve. If there is a problem in there, what are we doing to assist that school to get to that goal? All we're saying here is that there's a problem, and we're going to look at them, consistently implement campus-wide differentiated instructional strategy, but that's what we've been doing. And in other words, what are we doing besides this? Now, what Mr. Garcia is saying is this, we're looking deep into the problem, who puts these policies together? Recently, Laredo Independent School District was criticized severely that we were purging kids out, throwing them out, okay? The word they used was purged.
In 2007,
Well,
not
they
today.
came up, these people, the newspaper in Houston, the local one won't do that. They only cover our ceremonies. But the Houston newspaper contacted the state and asked them, where did you come up with this 8.5% cap? And they said they never did. It's in the article, okay? They never said that. They said that 8.5% was an indicator of the performance of a local district. They never said that there's a cap there. No. The way I see it, all I've got is this, okay? What are we going to do to help the schools? Obviously, they need more than what they have right now to meet those goals. If not, they would have met those goals already. So what are we doing? What
Dr.
is the
Nelson?
proposal? What is the proposal? Do we need more teachers? Do we need more teaching time? What is it that we need? In Santa Maria, if I remember correctly, the children would go after hours to the library. I went with my grandkids a couple of times.
All of our schools,
Okay, they all do.
all of them.
Well, I didn't attend all of them, just Santa Maria. Okay, but that's good. What else are we doing?
We have those high-level classes that are supposed to help us with that third indicator.
Trailblazers, yes.
Trailblazer classes.
The
That
list goes
should
on
help
and
us.
on.
Okay, but that hasn't worked.
No, we just
Because
started
it
them.
hasn't
Started
worked.
this
Okay,
year.
We just started.
The other, if I may, well, go ahead.
Okay, that hasn't worked. So why don't we try something else? See, this is where a board comes in. Let's go into different ideas, you know.
Listen.
If this hasn't worked, you know, what are we waiting for?
We just started this year.
Well, it's a,
Yeah, but
on both ways, there's things in the meeting earlier, which is the curriculum, that they tell us that, you know, what they're doing different from last year, that we see something working. But I also brought up that there's still some things that we've had last year, the year before last, that still seem not to work. So what have we done to adjust that, to see if we can get it working? And I know I brought it up.
I'd like to hear from the principals.
At the curriculum.
So do
They-
we
they
I'd like to hear from
They
them.
presented at the
Okay.
curriculum meeting.
I'm going to ask, do we have that TELPUS Tuesdays that some schools have?
Right.
See, that's not up
Yes.
there either, and I know that that's a direct
Right.
Yes.
effort to assist.
That's a district
that.
initiative.
Yes.
It's a district initiative.
Let me
Yeah.
let me tell you, if you remember, I believe it's a year and a half ago,
Sir?
okay? I went to those training sessions, and what I got was that they didn't have enough iPads, or ¿cómo se llaman esos recorders?
Well, I brought-
Projectors.
Projectors, okay? And I came out here and I raised a lot of stink, and finally we got some of that going.
Yes,
all right?
sir.
Well, that makes me wonder what else is needed, because see, the principals were tasked with providing these services, but they didn't have enough equipment. And I checked with a couple of other schools besides Santa Maria, and it was the same thing. So my question right now is, what else can we do? What we have in place right now is not working. And all we're saying is this: we're going to look at them and continue doing what we're doing right now. And I know they're very committed, but that's not working. What else can we do?
Dr. Nelson?
Thank you, Dr. Moreno. I respect Mr. Valdez's comments. He and I have had an opportunity to meet privately, and he shared the same sentiment. I respectfully disagree. For the record, when the STAR system, which we're currently held accountable by the legislature, it goes from the Senate, the House, to TEA, to local communities. And when it started, together, this team of 8 had 19 improvement required campuses, and I believe consistently and systematically, we together have reduced that to 0. And it's been every teacher, every principal, every central office member, and this board setting the expectation. Trailblazer classes came from this board.
Then why are we here right now?
Because these campuses are formally improvement required, and according to the state of Texas, we have to have a public hearing and be held accountable for campuses that are unwilling or unable to meet state standards. That's no longer the case here. I'll go ahead and say it right now, we'll never accept that standard. Now, we've had as many as 5 before. We've been sitting in a meeting, a hearing just like this with 5 IR campuses. Some of those campuses, we've had to change principals. Some of those campuses, we've had to mandate Saturday activities. There's all kinds of activities that when you say that we're not doing nothing, respectfully, with all due respect, that is inaccurate.
I didn't say that.
I think that's, I'm glad you said that the board, we did have 19 campuses, and we're at 0, and we're getting better. I think
We still
we
can improve.
we hit a certain plateau that some of the things that are working very well. We know that. But there's some little things in different areas, special ed, that still need to be tweeted to get a little better so we can get to another level.
Point well taken.
Yeah, and that's good. It's always healthy. It's always healthy to look at what's working and what's not working and what's barely working and see what we can do to get better. But I
Weekly.
do commend the staff there were 19 schools, and because of your leadership, Valdez, and things that we needed for schools.
We got 'em.
We got them,
iPads.
and we've seen an improvement, and we just gotta keep that thinking going, that, you know what, we're not gonna satisfy, I said that, the curriculum, we're not gonna be satisfied until we're at top of everything. That should be everybody's goal.
See, if we have improvement required campuses, the accountability must begin with my office and those people that report to me.
Right.
Those are the people that have to be held accountable if our kids are not performing. The flip side of that is if we have zero improvement required campuses,
Something's right.
it goes to, from every teacher all the way to the board, gets credit for that. And that's the way we set it up. That's the way we want it. Any principal will tell you that if their campus makes it, it's because their team did it. If their campus doesn't make it, it's because we didn't lead well enough. We didn't ask the right questions. We didn't give them enough supplies. So that's the system we have in this district. And it's good for kids, and it's yielded results.
As the saying goes, when the schools do good, we all do good. When one school fails,
We all fail. Point well taken.
Well, I mean, but at the same time, in noticing, we have a number of things that we've talked about over the last month, and most of these programs and strategies and goals that we implement, I'm just wondering right now if all that we're doing is overlapping each other and communicating well with each other in other areas that we function at. And how is this, for instance, if we're at 35%, in 2016, where were we in 2015? What changed that it brought it down, and how are we implementing it so we can go to 75%? Is that the thinking that's going on here?
I think
Yes.
there's more awareness now. For example, on that 35% of our ELLs experienced no growth on
Right.
TELPAS. The expectation is that they meet or they grow at least one proficiency level.
Every
minimum.
kid
Every,
grow at least
every
1
child.
year's growth.
and the standards have moved too.
Absolutely.
So we want them to move, from the beginning to the intermediate, advanced, advanced high levels of TELPAS. So one of the things they're doing now is closely monitoring those, especially those students that are at the beginning level. They should not be beginning unless they're recent immigrants. A child cannot stay at that level for 2-3 years. That affects us in PBMAS. That's one of the indicators. So they're closely monitoring those students, also those fifth graders that have been here multiple years, and they're still at beginning intermediate level. So that's one of the things they're doing more of. Now they're looking at TELPAS as the other state assessment, where in the past, the focus was more on START. Now we're really looking at all, because they all affect us, whether it's in PBMAS or STAR.
One thing the state does, I think they're happy when they see you fail, or they're happy when they don't see you succeed, because they tell you, okay, you didn't meet here, so they tell you, you got to catch it here, but you know what? I worked to get here, but once you get here, they move you over here. So they're always moving the bar on us, and doesn't give us a chance to, okay, catch up. Now they're going to move the bar regardless if we're there or not there, and that's what we've been playing. You know what? We get here, but they moved it over here. Finally get here and they move it over here.
I think that, I appreciate you saying it. There was just 24 months ago, it wasn't this school district for the record, but there were many school districts in Texas that met the standard according to the state of Texas and were unacceptable according to the U.S. Department of Education.
Right.
Both were reported in LMT. So you were a champ over here, and you did not meet, you failed here. Now, their work, and really last thing I'll say, because it is clearly a political conversation, but respect honorable members of the board. People that are Republican by nature will say that they want to expand school choice. That is code for make public schools look like they're not successful. Make public schools look like they can't or won't do what private or charter schools will, so that people can take their monies to for-profit educational organizations. And so I'm not trying to push it one way or the other. I'm just saying that as we go into the legislative session, Lieutenant Dan Patrick, I believe is his name, has said that school choice is one of his priorities this session. And for us, that's laughable, because we're outperforming Harmony Science Academy. We're outperforming some of our charter competition, and we would not welcome people like IDEA. They're coming in all over the valley, from El Paso to Brownsville. And if they came to Laredo, they would come trying to take Laredo ISD kids from our school district. So we have to have quality schools because that's what every family deserves, is a place to send their kids so they
That
can
was
get
also
educated.
Trump's agenda, to more of those schools.
Let me tell you what, again, unfortunately, this
Listen.
goes on at the state level. They are the ones that said we never ordered a cap on special ed. And everybody thought that they did. They
Right.
said that publicly, okay? That being said, I come back to the local level. My concern is, when you go to the local school, okay? If you look at state law, it says that we will provide principals with the tools needed to, I don't know if the word is succeed, but needed to take, ¿cómo se dice? Well, yeah, to succeed in their schools, okay?
Be successful.
That's where I come from. Now, I know I'm getting old, but I don't think my memory is failing me yet, 2.5 years ago,
That's debatable.
it was a lot of screaming here that we hadn't provided our teachers and everybody in our schools with the number of iPads, I believe iPads and projectors that needed. Rather than excuses, after all that screaming and what have you, we got some of them, right?
Yes, sir.
My question is this, have we now provided those tools to them? Because they're needed. Okay? Another question that I have is this, okay, at the local level. Do all the special ed teachers have iPads?
Yes, sir.
Right? All right, I'll talk to you later.
Glad finance
Because
is here to hear this
there are some that
conversation.
don't, but that's not, an order thing, okay? All right. Do they have the resources that they need? In other words, I would like to hear from them. I know I'm not going to do it here because that's not the objective, and politics comes to the local level. I would like to hear from them, what do you need?
We can put it in the agenda at the curriculum committee for you.
Incentives, well,
It's a great idea.
in other words, I want to hear from them, what do they need?
Yes, that's exactly who presents at the curriculum committee, they do.
During
The
the budget
principal.
That's not what I
process, they
hear.
do that.
School by school.
All right.
We'll put it on there for you.
They're
You wanna
just like the
take us
state of
to the
Texas,
next
it's
school,
never enough.
Cigarroa Middle?
Sí, pero aquí es puro como muy bien. No tenían iPads. Se les habían olvidado ordenarlas.
Go ahead, Ms. Cortez.
The next school is Cigarroa Middle School. They again met the standards in all 4 indexes, and we're very proud to say they got 6 distinction designations
Out of 7, just
Out of 7.
for the record.
out of
For the
7,
record.
yes. And they
They were
almost got it in
improvement required
science.
3 years in a row. They're about to be reconstituted,
Right.
which means we have to release every professional from their contract and allow them to apply. And where we started, when we went into that plan, the first thing we did is reconstituted the principal. We hired Mr. Jose Certa, and in 1 year, they were able to make it. Now they got to make it a second year. So it was serious. So
And their preliminary scores that just came out look good.
Yes.
But we did something that we hadn't done in a long time, and I hate to say it, but we stopped using Cigarroa Middle as a dumping ground for bad teachers. And that's what this district was doing. They were throwing, bad teachers, send them over there. And now, gave him the opportunity to weed those people out. And now we have good teachers across the board, and we need to keep that. We need to give the principals that authority to do that.
absolutely,
That's what I was saying.
absolutely, yes. You say it all the time.
Yeah, you're regurgitating my.
So go ahead, Ms.
Okay, so the identified areas of need, we still have work to do with our English language learners and our special ed students. That's across the board. Only 44% of the students met the STAR standard in all subjects. So again, we're implementing that explicit direct instruction model, which we think will be very beneficial to our students. And only 10% met the advanced level. We want to increase that to 20%. And 48% of the students met the STAR writing standard. A lot of these,
So
Yes,
do
ma'am.
we have a plan for them to, not a CBA, but for them to be rated on how they're doing in their writing?
well,
In other
they do
words,
have
is
to
there gonna-
submit writing samples. What they did
But not
this year.
samples, I mean, where everybody gets to do a writing.
Yes, and grade
somebody
it.
scores it, and we put them out there, these are the scores that they have so far. Because that's the only way we're going to impact that writing, we have to,
Practice.
that they are writing.
And they're doing a lot of the planning on the third turnaround initiative, they're implementing a writing model. They're really looking at the specificity of the revising and editing TEKS, the instructional facilitator and the assistant principal, one of the assistant principals, they're coaching the teachers. So they're really looking into those TEKS. And if you all recall, when I presented the turnaround plan last spring, one of the initiatives was to add sixth grade writing courses in sixth grade. So they did add 2. So students are
And further-
taking writing in the sixth grade.
Thank you, Ms. Cortez. Also, for the record, Dr. Moreno, we give a benchmark. Those benchmarks will be given between December and January, and they all have writing components where they're scored on a rubric, the same rubric. They've been trained on the rubric that the state gives. Every kid gets a 1, 2, 3, or 4
So we
and
can
feedback.
expect to see those results in January or February?
Absolutely. As
Yes.
soon as those benchmarks
Yes.
are completed, absolutely.
Yes.
Dr.
And the
Moreno, I
goal
have
is
a
for
question.
65% to meet it.
Liendo?
Thank you. Is there a system in place to notify the parents when you see that they're not meeting standards? Or do they just get the score sheet sent home and, they read it if they want to or not? Is there some type of personal communication with them?
Yes, they do inform the parents, especially of those that are failing, not meeting the standard. They hold parent conferences. This year, they implemented the teaming approach, which allows more of that. The students are grouped in groups of, let's say, 120, and they have those 5 teachers for the core areas. So they all meet and review the student scores, and that's when they start holding parent conferences, notifying parents. So yes, there is a system in place.
Thank you.
I would add to that, Trustee Liendo, that by law, we have to do what we call taper hearings. So there's a district report that says, did this district meet state standards or not? We have to announce that to the public, and it's a hearing. We usually do ours in December or January. We haven't even got the official report this year yet, but as soon as we get it, we call the hearing. Every campus is doing the same thing
Yes.
by law. So you have to have, Sigourney Middle School has to have a meeting, they have to invite every parent, and they have to go over that report. So now our issue is getting people involved, getting parents to come to that meeting. So that's a different challenge. But we do, in addition to what Mrs. Cortez said about our teachers having scheduled parent conferences in our calendar, we also do it formally as a district and by campus.
So does that conclude our?
That concludes our presentation, and if there's no further comments or questions, we can move to the next agenda item. Thank you. Item D is discussion and presentation of the Laredo Independent School District's pass superiors, what that should say, rating on the state's financial accountability system, financial integrity rating system of Texas, first report. So this is the document that we'll be referring from. It's on your laptop, and you have a paper copy that looks like this. And I'd encourage you to read it. It has data going all the way back to the 2014-15 school year. I'm proud to report that we are one of the few districts in the state of Texas that received a perfect score on our first ratings. And you can look at the different criteria in this report. I believe it is 15 different criteria that are scored. And when we first began this journey, I want to say 2010, we did not have a perfect score. We had close to it, but since that expectation was made clear by this board, we have sought and ultimately attained that level. Now, for the record, it requires us to work on staffing ratios. It asks how many administrators do we have compared to how many kids we have. And so you're going to be part of some lively discussion where people want to add resources, want to have more conversations about programs, and all of those people impact this report. So if we expect a perfect score, well, then we have to go criteria by criteria and ask ourselves, are we really fiscally prudent in our leadership? So I do, before I turn it over to Ms. Ayala, I want to recognize those in our audience that are from the finance department. They don't come to all of these meetings, but this is their victory lap, so to speak, and definitely evidence that they are hardworking and dedicated to the part of their organization that they contribute to our team. So would you please stand at this time, our finance department? Thank you for your work. Thank you. You may be seated. Any comments or questions before we go through the presentation?
Yes, you know, when we do the superintendent's evaluation, I've always made comments regarding the questions that are asked, and of course the answers that are given. And if you look at the questions that are asked here, and I'm not trying to knock this down, I think we have a very good accounting, department. But look at the questions, question number one, just going to go one, okay? It says, here's what they judge you on. Was the complete annual financial report submitted within 30 days of the November 27 or January deadline?
Yes,
I mean, like who,
Did it or you didn't?
in other words, to submit a report like that, come on. Yeah, so simple. But coming back to this.
But not everybody has it.
Yes, and it's a critical indicator. So if you say no,
I'm
you
the one
failed
making
the
the
test.
My point is that we have already, as a board, said that we need to do some workshop work on the part of the policies. Remember, Mr. Garcia?
Purchasing.
On purchasing and others, okay? I'd like to go into that. It's good that we got this rating because it means something to some people over there. I think that on their own, they're doing a good job. These reports, or like all the other certifications and what have you that we get, that still doesn't improve our education system at the lower levels. But coming back to this, we do have some problems and some things that we need to look into the accounting department. Okay?
Yes, sir. So may we proceed?
Yes.
Those are my
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Valdez. So, Ms. Ayala, we're just going to go through this presentation that's in paper. I know we needed to announce that we have a perfect score, that we have a superior rating. I believe if we fast forward to question number 1 and read those, or tell me what you'd like to do.
Yes, I wanted to start by recognizing the members of the Board of Trustees at that point in time, if I can, and then I can go over the indicators, which I think I need to publicly go and
Okay, go ahead.
and state each one. So, before you have a copy of the publication, and for the 2014-15 Board of Trustees, we have for District 2, Mr. Jesus Martinez, who served as president at that time. For District 1, Mr. Jose A. Valdez, who served as vice president. We also had for District 4, Mr. Ricardo Garza, who served as secretary. For District 3, we had Mr. Hector J. Noyola. For District 5, Dr. Cecilia May Moreno. For District 6, Mr. Hector J. Garcia. And for District 7, we had Mr. Jose R. Perez.
You know that.
Okay, it's also very important to note that Laredo ISD was one of the 1,003 school districts in the state of Texas that received a rating of superior, and one of 35 in Region 1. In calculating the financial accountability indicators for school district, TA used the annual financial report, the data feed file, PEIM submissions, warrant holds, foundation payments, and other sources included but not limited to Internal Revenue Services, Teacher Retirement System, and Texas Workforce Commission reports. Under Indicator 1, the question was the complete annual financial report and data submitted to TA within 30 days of the November 27 or January 20 deadline, depending on the school district fiscal year end, date of June 30th or August 31st, respectively. This is a critical indicator. Indicators 1 through 5 are considered critical indicators. Failure to meet the requirement of any critical indicator will cause a failure of the school first report. It is very important to note that the Texas Education Agency considers the first rating when assigning an accreditation status to the school district. Also, we also have the solvency indicators, which begin with indicator 6, and it goes all the way through indicator 12. And we have financial competence indicators, which begin with indicator 13 through 15. I will proceed with indicator 2, which is divided into two parts. 2A, was there an unmodified opinion in the AFR on the financial statements as a whole? We got a perfect score there. It's a yes or no question. The response is yes. The opinion expressed by our independent auditors on the August 31st, 2015 and August 31st, 2014 audit report was an unmodified opinion. Under 2B, did the external independent auditor report that the, what we call the AFR annual financial report was free of any instances of material weaknesses in internal controls over financial reporting and compliance for local, state, or federal funds? The response was yes. Our independent auditors report that the August 31st, 2015 and 2014 AFR report was free of any instances of material weaknesses in internal controls. Under indicator 3, was the school district in compliance with the payment terms of all debt agreements at fiscal year end? The response is yes. Laredo ISD had no instances of default on bought indebtedness obligations for fiscal year ending 2015 and 2014.
Only a few got that.
Under indicator 4, did the school district make timely payments to the teacher retirement system, Texas Workforce Commission, and Internal Revenue Service, and other government agencies? The response is yes. Laredo ISD made timely payments to government agencies for the fiscal year ending 2015. Then for indicator 5, was the total unrestricted net asset balance in the governmental activities column in the statement of net assets greater than 0? And the response is yes. Laredo ISD's total unrestricted net asset balance, net of accretion of interest in the governmental activities in the statement of net assets was greater than 0. The net asset balance for 2015 was $88.5 million and $77.3 million for the year 2014. Under indicator 6, was the number of days of cash on hand and current investments in the general fund for the school district sufficient to cover operating expenditures? Here we scored a 10 out of 10. Laredo ISD's number of days of cash on hand was 146.176 days for 2015 and 130.047 days for 2014. Under indicator 7, was the measure of current assets to current liabilities ratio for the school district sufficient to cover short-term debt? Again, we had a perfect score there. The district's measure of current assets to current liability ratio was 4.4931 for 2015 and 7.9577 for 2014. Under indicator 8, was the ratio of long-term liabilities to total assets for the school district sufficient to support long-term solvency? Again, we scored a perfect score here. Laredo ISD's ratio of long-term liabilities to total asset was 0.5042 for 2015 and not available for 2014 due to GASB 68 implementation starting in 2015. Under indicator 9, did the school district's general fund revenues equal or exceed expenditures? If not, was the school district number of days of cash on hand greater than or equal to 60 days? We scored a perfect score here too. Laredo ISD's ratio for the 2015 school year was 3.484%. For the 2014 school year, the ratio was 4.588%. For indicator 10, was the debt service coverage ratio sufficient to meet the required debt service? We scored a 10 here. Laredo ISD ratio for the 2015 school year was 1.482%. For the 2014 school year, the ratio was 1.567%. Under indicator 11, was the school district's administrative cost ratio equal to or less than the threshold ratio? Laredo ISD administrative cost ratio was 6.85 for 2015 and 7.05 for 2014, below the 8.55 ratio for school districts with an ADA above 10,000. Again, we scored a 10 here. Under indicator 12.
So for the record, 11 is one of the ones I think we need to take a look at. Go ahead.
Under indicator 12. Did the school district now have a 15% decline in the students to staff ratio over 3 years? Laredo ISD had an 11.5 decline in students to staff ratio over 3 years. This indicator calculates the student to staff ratio over 3-year period and assigns 10 points if district has less than 15% decline. We scored a 10. For indicator 13, did the comparison of public education information systems, which is known as PIMS data, to lack information in the school district's AFR result in a total variance of less than 3% of all expenditures by function. We scored a 10 here. Laredo ISD data quality measure was 0.00 for 2015 and 0.00 for 2014, far below the allowable 3% variation. So we do have a lot of data integrity in our financial statements. For item 14, did the external independent auditor indicate the AFR was free of any instances of material noncompliance for grants, contracts, and loss related to local, state, or federal funds? Again, we scored a 10. Laredo ISD external auditors indicated the AFR was free of material noncompliance for 2015 and 2014. Under indicator 15, did the school district not receive an adjusted repayment schedule for more than one fiscal year for an over-allocation of foundation school program funds as a result of a financial hardship? We scored a 10. Laredo ISD did not receive an adjusted repayment schedule for more than one fiscal year for an over-allocation of foundation school program funds as a result of a financial hardship during 2015 and 2014.
That's what's required by law?
Yes.
And do you have to go over the financials on the next page?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll go rather quickly on this. These are the reimbursements, outside compensation, gifts, and other transactions
Okay.
for board members. This is for the 12-month period ended August 31st, 2015. For Mr. Hector J. Garcia, the amount spent reimbursed $7,264.15. For Dr. Cecilia May Moreno, 0. Hector J. Noyola, 0. Jose A. Valdez, $2,232.26. Jesus Martinez, $6,657.53. Ricardo Garza, $4,678.80. Jose R. Perez, 0. The superintendent's reimbursement, the total amount being $8,596.28. Gifts received by executive officers and board members, 0 was reported. Outside compensation and/or fees received by the superintendent for professional consulting and/or other personal services, the total amount reported, $7,500. And lastly, we have business transactions between school district and board members. The total was $0 was reported, $0 reported. And lastly, we have projects that were completed during that time. And Dr. Nelson, that concludes my
I
presentation.
apologize for rushing you. I know that you've done a great job on this. One thing I want to say, which really echoes Mr. Valdez's sentiments, I agree, you're expected to get a perfect score. So 1,000 districts got a superior score, so there's only 1,100 districts, so you should. Now, for the record, if we'd have walked in here with an above standard or an average score, you'd be ready to terminate somebody. So you're expected to do it. If anyone came with a lower score, then we'd all be held accountable. And the reason why that's important to say here is because we have to have conversations about items like number 11 and number 12 that clearly, if we're not having conversations about our administrative staffing ratios, we will slowly but surely find ourselves out of compliance. And if we're out of compliance and we don't get a perfect score, that will be just grossly inconsistent with what's expected of this district. So you're applauded, thank you, and it's expected.
Let me just add a couple of things. The reason I bring these things up is not to put anybody down, okay? But you see, these things filter down to the local level when people are told out there, look, we are superior in this, you are superior in that. I don't want to go too deep into that, but it's real, okay?
Yes,
now,
sir.
out of 1,023 school districts in the state of Texas, we also made the grade, okay? And they call it superior achievement. 1,003 made it. Okay, so we're passing. That's good. That's good. We're passing. Very good. And
Thank
I've
you.
been here for 20 years now. Come January, I've never heard of our
Maybe
finance
you just-
department not passing.
Okay.
Thank you. That's a
Let me
good
do that
record for
public hearing.
LASD.
I mean, the
Yes.
special call real quick.
Yes.
So, thank you very much, Finance. At this time, Dr. Moreno, I ask that we open the special call meeting to approve our target improvement plans. The meeting was scheduled to start at 5. Oh, I'm sorry. We need to end this hearing. Allow comments from the public. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So right now, this is a public hearing, and do we have anybody in the public that wishes to address? Anybody from the public that has pros or cons to report on?
What public?
Anybody from the public that wishes to address the public hearing? If there is nobody else, then do we have,
I move to adjourn the public hearing, this notice of public hearing.
we have a motion
Second.
and a second to adjourn the public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Public hearing is adjourned.
Just ask that
We now open our special call meeting, Thursday, November 17, and it is 6:13 PM. We're in the Amber Yuri Boardroom, and we will dispense with the Pledge of Allegiance because we've had that, but we will have a roll call.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Celia May Moreno.
Go ahead and do it here. Present.
Mr. Hector Noyola, absent. Ms. Cindy Liendo.
Present.
Mr. Jose Valdez.
Present.
Mr. Ricardo Barza, present. Mr. Hector Garcia.
I am present,
And Mr. Rosero Valdez is absent.
for the record.
Dr. Nelson?
Thank you, Dr. Moreno. Item number 1 is discussion and possible action to approve the targeted improvement plans for formerly improvement required campuses, including Bruni Elementary, Landecker Elementary, Santa Maria Elementary, and Figueroa Middle School. We recommend approval as presented in the public
So
hearing.
moved.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
Recommend adjournment.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.
No.